Hey, what's up folks? My name is Ian, aka Ishavatar Das, as I'm known in the Hare Krishna tradition. I'm here in my tattoo shop, World Tattoo, in Denver, Colorado. In this video I'll be discussing how to put a CD009 transmission from a Nissan 350Z or similar into the Volvo rear-wheel drive platform, more specifically the 7 and 9 series Volvos. About 20 years ago I got really into these cars and I had something very similar to what I have now. What I have now is a 1989 740 turbo wagon. It came factory manual and it has oxblood red interior. It's really cool, it's in really good shape. So this is kind of a dream car of mine, something I've always wanted. And about 20 years ago I built the motor for this car, and I was about 18 years old then. And I actually got that motor back now 20 years later, the same motor, so I've recently rebuilt it and I'm putting it back in the car. I'm doing this transmission swap. I always wanted to do a T5 transmission swap. That was the thing that people were doing more so back then, but I decided to go for the CD009. And yeah, I'm building the car for daily driving, reliable daily driver, and also I'm hoping to take it to the track and maybe learn to drift. So I'm really wanting to build something that's really durable, and that's why I chose the CD009. I actually went with the CD00A, which is the improved version, and these are notorious for holding a lot of power. I even saw somewhere online that they hold up to 900 horsepower. I don't know how true that is, but I'll be lucky if I ever make 400 horsepower out of this motor, so it should be plenty strong. Another great thing about the CD00A is the shifter placement. It's almost perfect on the 740 with the serial 9 shifter. And the other thing is YOSHIFAB makes almost all the parts you need to bolt this up to your car, so you can just order the parts and get the job done. This is my first time ever doing a manual transmission swap, or really working on a manual transmission at all. I've rebuilt motors, I've done a lot of other work on cars, changed turbos, suspension work, stuff like that, but I've never done anything with a manual transmission. So, you know, I'm a little bit nervous, but the thing is, with the information that's out there, it should be doable. I mean, I did have a lot of questions going into this still, and that's the reason I wanted to make this video. Like, as a service, I wanted to make a good comprehensive how-to that shows people how to do the swap and doesn't leave them with many questions, you know. So you can feel confident about it and make this happen for your car and have a well-shifting, durable transmission in your 80s model Volvo. These red block motors are capable of making a lot of power, but the stock N46 and N47 transmissions aren't really able to hold that much power. So this is a really good option for somebody who's looking to increase the power on their car and, you know, have something that's reliable. So my car in specific, I have the motor out already because I rebuilt it. So on this instructional, we're going to start with my motor and transmission out of the car. And I'm going to assemble everything out of the car, and then I'm going to lower it in from the top. It's always been a nightmare of mine to try to do a transmission swap under the car, just in the garage with a floor jack and a cherry, you know, all I have is like a floor jack and a cherry picker and jack stand. So I'm thinking it's going to be quite a bit easier to do it from the top, so that's where we're going to start. So let's get right into it. We're going to start with removing the old N46 transmission from my B230 motor, and let's go. The starter bolts are 19 millimeters. The smaller ones on the underside are 14 millimeter bolts. So basically, once we have this taken off, once we separate it, this clutch fork, this seal just pops out, and then you just kind of wiggle it out, and it comes right out. It's super easy. Mine has some little kind of metal fragments in there from this pivot ball. This is called the pivot ball. And then this is the throwout bearing. Looks like it just slides right off. And I don't know what they're supposed to sound like, but this one sounds very, like the bearings are very loose. So my guess is that's not what that's supposed to sound like. I'm gonna go ahead and clean this out a little bit so I can see what's going on. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 14 millimeter nuts here. They're not nuts, they're bolts. Now we're just gonna separate the bell housing. I didn't realize the fluid was gonna drain out of this thing when I separated that bell housings. You can see the fluid coming out here. There are 6 Allen head bolts. Here you can see I'm removing them with the impact. This pressure plate, you just remove the Allen bolts. They're really, mine weren't even that tight. They came right off. And one thing I noticed when I took this apart is this fell out. And it goes right here. This is the seal for the pilot bearing. So that's not good. There it goes. There's my bearings rolling down the driveway. Next, we're going to remove the flywheel. This is what's called a dog dish flywheel. You can see it's very deep, and all that material also means it's very heavy. So, to my understanding, this will make your transmission action a little smoother, but it's so heavy, it adds a lot of rotating mass to the motor. So I'm replacing mine with a YOSHIFAB lightened flywheel setup. I think it's supposed to be like 14 or 16 pounds lighter, so that's pretty significant. I'm gonna go ahead and break these loose. This is a 17 millimeter socket. I'm just gonna give it a whack with the dead blow. Should kind of break it loose. This thing is super heavy. So it took a little effort to get off, but it came off. It's just fitted on here snugly, and it's been there for 36, 37 years, so no big surprise there. So we're going to remove the throwout bearing and the clutch lever. First I want to just pop this part out, this rubber boot. Oh yeah, so these tabs just, they kind of snap behind the shift lever. And it just slides out. So on this transmission that I got, there are several things that I don't need. One is this weight. Apparently Nissan puts this here to kind of stabilize some vibrations. So we're gonna take it off. The thing weighs about 5 pounds, 10 pounds. So there are many different brackets and things on this transmission that we're not going to need for the Volvo swap. So I'm going to take these off. Personally right now I'm going to leave the cross member on just because it's helping me kind of balance it while I'm working on it, and I'm just here by myself, so I'm going to leave this on for now. So same thing for this side of the transmission. We have brackets here, here, got a bell housing bolt here. There's another one here that we're not gonna need. So one thing about this transmission is this sticker right here. Apparently this is the only surefire way to know what transmission you have. But this is CD00A, so that's one of the newest versions. And as far as I discovered, the AZZ, this is just referring to where this transmission is stored in the stock. And this number right here, I believe 20, is the year it was manufactured. So I think this is from 2020. And when I bought this transmission, I was told it only had 2,000 miles on it. And to me, it kind of looks like that could be true. So I'm about ready to cut the belt housing on this thing. I'm still waiting on some parts from YOSHIFAB, but I want to go ahead and get this ready since everything else is pretty much ready on my car. So a lot of the videos I saw, they show cutting behind this second rib. They even give you some kind of a tool where you can mark it. But a few videos I saw for other cars, they're actually cutting on this side of the rib because there's a clean line to follow, and then we can just sand it smooth even here. So that's what I'm gonna try. I don't know, from what I can tell, that's gonna give us enough space here for the adapter. And if I'm wrong, I'll just cut it again here. It's not that big of a deal. It's pretty easy to cut. We're also gonna slice this off. We don't need this, and we need to get it out of the way for our transmission tunnel. I may also cut this off, and I'm gonna round over some of these pieces because I want to make sure that I can clear the transmission tunnel in the Volvo. It's said to fit on the 7 Series, but it's said to fit tightly, so I want to just make sure when I stick this thing under there, I don't have to redo anything. So personally, I'm going to be cutting some of this ribbing off, this extra metal, just to make sure I'm totally in the clear. So to do this, I'm using a DeWalt cutoff wheel, very common, just grinder cutoff wheel, and I'm using this reinforced metal blade. This one's I think it was a 6 or 4 inch. Should work well. We're also going to use face mask. This is cheap from Harbor Freight. You won't regret using this. You need to make sure you don't get metal in your eyes. That'll ruin your day or week or life, so we don't want that. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this. Cutting it right here. I don't need to make a line because I can just follow this rib. Now at this point, I cut it around as far as I could on both sides before I need to get to the bottom. And I haven't drained the fluid in this transmission yet, so what I'm gonna do, and I'm just gonna hope this works, is I'm gonna plug this vent, which one of these bolts fits perfect in there, so we can plug it. I'm gonna tip it up on its side, and we're gonna cut it the rest of the way. So now I've cut most of the way through here, but you can see the bell housing didn't come off yet. That's because there's a few ribs. See here and here. Where you have to cut a little deeper. So something funky happened to my cutting wheel right as I was trying to take the last little bits off. So this whole thing's pretty safe, but this is somewhere we don't want to mess around. So I'm gonna go ahead and change this blade out just to be on the safe side. So I really don't want that thing exploding in my face, even though I have a mask on. Face shield. It's not worth it. We just want to go ahead and change this because it's pretty cheap. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and just try to break this off because it's just held on by a few little ribs. You'll see it comes right off. Nothing hard. Now, I'm just gonna clean up this edge with a flap disc sander. This should work really well to grind this all smooth. No one's ever really gonna see it. It's gonna be under the car, but you know, as car guys, we like to do things nicely when we can, so I'm gonna go ahead and clean that up. Got this pretty smooth. I mean, I didn't completely tweak out on it because like I said earlier, you're never gonna see it, but this adapter is gonna bolt in here. And I think it's gonna be thick enough to offset this gap. Most of the videos I saw after the M46 bell housing's on, you see a big old gap here, so I figure this will work. I hope it works. One thing to make sure of is these ribs. You want to make sure they're at least somewhat tapered back. You can see how the rest of these I've done, they kind of angle back so that there's no way they interfere, but I missed this one, so I got to trim that back. Another thing we want to chop off is this mount. This is something used on the 350Z, but we don't need this, so I'm just gonna make some marks. Probably don't even need the lines, but it's nice to have some visual reference. I'm gonna just shave this a bit here. Might lop these off too. And same on the other side. Maybe this too. So for this next part, we need to remove a 1/4 inch off the input shaft here per the instructions on D-Works website. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this handy tool and I'm going to set it to a 1/4 inch and just make some marks around here. And if you put the transmission in neutral, you can turn this input shaft. And I might eat my words on this, but I don't think this part has to be probably so insanely accurate. But we're gonna need to take at least a 1/4 inch off of there. So I'm gonna chop it. I'm gonna turn this while I'm chopping it so it stays kind of straight. And then I'm gonna mimic this bevel right here that it comes with from the factory. One thing I forgot to point out when doing any of this work is, I just cleaned up all this aluminum dust. No doubt some of it's made it into my lungs, so if you're smart, you'd probably wear one of these. Also, my head is pounding right now because I was so loud. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some earplugs. You can use any kind of earplugs, but man, it really helps a lot. It's so loud. First, sand the face flat, and then turn the sander at a 45-degree angle and bevel the edge. So here's that input shaft. Got a pretty decent bevel on it after my cut. So now I'm going to start with the removal of the stock shifter, and then we're going to install the CD009 technical shifter. We're going to start by removing these 4 bolts. They're 12 millimeters. So there's a locking pin here. You can see it has 2 parts. There's an inner part we have to drive out, and then we have to drive out the outer part. We want to take that middle inside one out first, which I don't have a really good tool to do it with. The first thing is we need to install this piece, which per their website, what you want to do is we want to kind of get this pre-installed here, this pin. So I'm just going to use the corner of my table vise to kind of pinch this a bit. Should be able to feel it squish a little. This part, I'll also put this in the vise. We're just going to give it a little tap. Just enough to get it started, but not to where it's poking into that open area. Here we have two different types of spacers. Apparently the older style transmissions, they have an inset piece here that this will fit down into. But mine is the newest one. So these are just gonna go here, the flat ones. So the first time I did this, I did something profoundly retarded. I installed it this way. It doesn't work that way. So we want to do it like this. You're gonna hold something under here to kind of support it. And then that's in. So next, I'm gonna install this shift assembly. So we have to insert the piece that sticks down. Usually go on here. And this is where we need our spacers, under here. Our long bolts should go in the top. And the shorter ones here. So the next thing we're going to do is drain the fluid from this transmission. Now I've got it set up here. It may look kind of janky, and it kind of is, but it's the best I could figure out for this. So basically just got this set up where I can drain it here. It's a 10mm Allen key. You hold the transmission really tight because this is all fine unless it falls off. There it goes. So for the next step here, I'm going to take this front cover off. I'm not quite ready to put the adapter on because I haven't got it yet, but Josh at YOSHIFAB wants me to measure the bearing in here to make sure we got the right size adapter. So I'm just going to pop these off. I'm going to put something under here because it might leak a little or a lot. So those are all 12mm. I'm just going to pop this off. Might need something to pry it. So I've removed the cover and I attempted to measure the bearing here, but realistically I think measuring here where that bearing fits into is going to be more accurate, and the measurement I got was a little bit over 3 7/8 inches, which converts to about 100mm. So this is a newer style CD009 transmission. So from everything I read, that means you'll have a 100mm bearing here, which you need the right one. For the D-Works kit, you need to let them know which one, and it will include an adapter. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put this cover back on because I'm not quite ready for the adapter and I don't want it to get dirty in here. So I'm just gonna put this back on temporarily just to keep the dust out it's been getting pretty dirty in here. I got a lot of metal shavings flying around and doing a lot of wire wheel cleaning things up, so that'll keep the dirt from getting in. One thing to discuss here is the interior portion of this swap. So you can see I've already taken mine apart, and I didn't film that initially. So what you want to do, it's pretty simple when you're removing the M46, is first of all, you have to remove your shift knob, which I had this aftermarket one. Basically undo the set screws, disconnect the switch, pull this off, and then on the actual shift lever there's a pin at the bottom. You have to drive that out. That'll release the whole thing. So then you have the actual shift lever removed, and you're going to want to remove this piece. It's pretty easy. There's just 2 screws, and then at the front there's this clip. There's a metal clip, and it clips to this bar right here. Now I've lifted this bar up to get it out of the way to get the shifter out, but essentially this part just clips here and holds this in place. Once you remove that, there's 2 connections on mine for the seat heater, and there's this one hole right here. This is for your light for the seat heaters. So you got to take that out. And honestly, after that, there is a bit of the shift boot. You just unbolt that. It comes out pretty easy. It's pretty self-explanatory. You just take that right from here. I believe there's 2 pieces to it. That part's pretty easy. Like, if you are doing this swap, you should be able to handle that. If you can't handle that part, then you're going to be in trouble. The next thing we want to talk about is the reverse light switch. On mine, I definitely want to retain that. So what I'm doing right now is I'm looking into the interior, the wiring here, to see what we have going on and try to find these wires. So what I've done is, if you come down here, there's a few connectors. This one right here, I don't know what that's for. Might be something else. We have our 2 for the seat heaters. This is our light for that center console. And if you look down here, there's a harness hanging. And mine, there's another harness that connects from this to your M46 with 4 plugs on it. But I've already disconnected that. And so for mine, I'm looking at this, trying to figure out what wires are what. And you can see mine are pretty tore up. The casing on the wires is just crumbling. But basically what we're looking for is, you can see I've placed a jumper in here to find out which wires I need. And what I've discovered is there's a black one and a blue and red wire, and those are going to be our reverse light wires. Now I'm also trying to figure out what wires are for the neutral safety switch, if there is one. I think there is one, and probably it's these. Actually, I'm pretty sure it's those, because if we come look at our harness, so this is the harness that's come off of the transmission. This plugs into that plug I was just showing you, and then they go down to the motor. So what I believe is this probably goes to the transmission. This is probably our neutral safety, or our reverse light. Yeah, it is, because that one is, look, it's blue and red and black. So you have those 2 wires. They come into this harness right here. And this, if I'm not wrong, I think this goes to your overdrive. And probably that connects here, I suppose. I could be wrong, but I think that's for the overdrive. So anyways, the wires we're concerned with right now are these two. And we're gonna just go ahead and I'm gonna wire up a pigtail that I got from CD009 for this transmission. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and test and make sure we have that jumped correctly. So I'm just gonna come here, turn on my ignition. My car's not gonna start because there's no motor in it right now. We come around here and we can see those reverse lights are lit up really bright. So that's what we want, we've confirmed. And the next thing is to wire in this pigtail. This is going to be the same. It's going to connect the circuit for the reverse light on our CD009. So for the next part of this, we're going to go over here to my old M46 and check out the shifter and the wiring there so you can compare. So here's this crusty demon. And I actually didn't remove the shifter on mine. I forgot. I left it on and I just pulled the whole thing out with it. So for the overdrive button, what we have is this connector, and looks like the wires are blue and brown, or maybe that's yellow. Looks like blue and brown. Same up here. We also have on the left side of the transmission this connection, and on this side there's a single plug there. I think that one is going to be probably the neutral safety switch, and this is probably the reverse light. So looking back in here, we've now identified this as, this is the overdrive connection. We're not going to use that. And you can see I've wired up my pigtail for the reverse light. I still have to shrink wrap these. I ran out of butane. But still remaining, we have these two connectors on this harness. And if I'm not wrong, these two, they're running up in here. You can see another connection here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut them down here, and I'm just going to pull these wires up, these two. There's a blue and black one and a yellow one. And I'm going to pull those up through here, and I'm just going to loop them. And as far as I know, that's going to bypass our neutral safety switch, so the car will start, no problem. So there's a few things we need to do with the bell housing in preparation for the swap. One thing is, on my car, I'm going from a LH 2.2 car, and in the future I'm hoping to do a standalone system in it. So I'm going to go ahead and install the pickup for the crankshaft position sensor that belongs for a LH 2.2 system. So what I'm going to do is, Volvo actually made it pretty convenient. They got this ready here where all we have to do is cut this out. So it's actually pretty nice. It looks pretty thin even. So I'm going to cut this piece out. That's going to make room for our crankshaft position sensor. And I'm just going to install the bracket there. That way I don't ever have to pull this apart if I need a pickup for my crankshaft position sensor in the future. So we're going to go ahead and machine this out. When I say machine, what I mean is I'm just going to remove this material. It's not machining at all. This is very Turbobricks style. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a hole here, here, and here, I think. And then I'm going to make some cuts with a cutoff wheel to connect those, and then I'll just kind of grind it smooth around there. So honestly, that was pretty easy to take off because when they made the casting, they made it really thin right around the edge here. So you can see, like, I was easily able to just kind of break it off. So I'm just gonna use a file and some sanding paper or something and kind of smooth this out. You don't... Now's probably a decent time to make sure this surface here is fairly clean. I have a little bit of leftover gasket here, so I'm just gonna scrape that off. I've done all that to measure this distance right here, because what I'm concerned with is I want to make sure that when I reinstall that slave cylinder that pushes this is a hydraulic clutch. It's pretty strong. I can't even push it by hand. But I did all that because I want this measurement. So it's about 2 1/4 inches. And I'm just gonna hope that when I set everything else up, I end up with this on my new parts. So one thing is, I'm getting the adjustable throwout bearing from YOSHIFAB. I'm also using a newer style clutch arm, which is supposed to be stronger, and a different clutch, pressure plate, transmission adapter, bell housing adapter. But one thing that I was really worried about when I was thinking about doing this project is I was so mental about this spacing and the throwout bearing spacing and everything, but one thing that Josh told me was, you know, you're using the stock bell housing, you can use the stock throwout bearing, you can use the stock lever. So actually everything here is pretty much the same. So what I'm doing here is probably overkill. I don't think it's necessary for everyone, but I just wanted that measurement, which again on mine is 2 1/4 inches. So I'm just going to confirm that once I put everything together with the new pressure plate and all that. Next, I'm going to take out the stock pivot ball from this bell housing using a 19mm deep socket. So this comes right out, and there's a nut on the back side. And as far as I know, I need to install this spacer that Josh has provided. So I'm putting this spacer on here. This is just for the kit I got. Because I'm using the clutch and pressure plate flywheel from Josh at YOSHIFAB. So I'm not sure you need to do this with every incident, but we're going to place this here, I believe, and it's just going to go right back where we had it. Now I'm personally wondering if this stud is long enough. It grabs a hold, but there's not a whole lot of thread in there. So when I'm trying to install this pivot ball spacer, I'm finding that it's barely grabbing on the threads. I also have some other studs around here. I'm going to check and see, maybe I can just use a longer threaded stud and see what works. So what I decided to do is take this nice stainless bolt I bought, and I'm just going to chop this bolt, and I'm going to use that just for security, to know that I have a little bit of extra thread in there. All right, so here's our new stud. You definitely could have just bought this from the hardware store too, but I'm pretty impatient, so just chop that. I'm gonna put some Loctite on here just to be safe. Just drop this through here, and the nut goes on the back. You can see it's made its way through here decently. I'm here under the car, And I'm gonna remove these two bolts. You see them sticking down right in front of where the shifter is. The hole for the shifter, these two right here. I don't know if those need to be out of the way, but I figure it's safe to grind them off just to make sure we have maximum room under here. I'm back here in the garage after some time has passed. It's been a few weeks since I was able to do much with the transmission swap. I've been getting the motor ready. I've got the engine bay all cleaned out, detailed, and tidied up. And I went on a little trip to Portland. I did some tattooing. And mostly I had to wait for some parts. There's a little bit of back and forth, a little bit of mishap with YOSHIFAB getting some of the parts, and you know, they got held up in customs because it's 2025 and we're having some issues with our president, some policy changes and stuff like that. So it took a while to get the parts, but finally I have everything here as far as I know to do the swap. Today's a big day. I'm going to go over the parts that I have here. We've already gone over the CD009 shifter that I used and a few other parts, but I'll go over these parts so you know what I have and what you can use. Here we have the cross member that Josh sells from YOSHIFAB. I just got that, so it was easy and quick. I got his lightened flywheel, pressure plate, and clutch package. This is like the medium strength one. I can't remember the exact name, but I'll tag the parts in the description. This actually came with the clutch alignment tool, which I bought an extra one, so that's nice that I have that. This is the drive shaft that he sells for the 7 Series extended drive shaft. It comes with the bearing here already pre-installed. I thought that it had also the bushing, but I was wrong. So I ordered this one, brand new carrier bushing for that. This is this trans mount that he sells, very simple. And this is the kit from D-Works, the actual adapter plate. This is what kind of slowed us down. This had the, I think it got held up in customs for like 3 weeks. So I got that finally. Here's the rest of the hardware for that. This is the throwout bearing sleeve that goes here for the CD009. This is the upgraded throwout bearing that Josh sells. It has two different fork positions on it. I don't know if you can see, but there's a couple different ways you can run it, so you have some adjustability there. And the gasket for the adapter plate. And of course my bell housing's there, and we're about to get into it. With our bell housing, there's a ring here. We have to take out this stock throwout bearing sleeve. So there's a ring here. I'm not sure how it comes out. I'm guessing we just probably pry it out somehow. Okay, that's not wanting to just pry out, so I think we're just gonna hammer this out. I've got this propped up on some 4x4s with space underneath for this to come out. And I'm gonna see if it moves. I'm not sure how this goes. You can see it's starting to come out. That's what we want. Liberation. So we got this out. I think this piece kind of went here. That's the seal. We'll keep this in case I need it for a future project. I'm gonna clean this hole out right here because why not? Okay, so now we're gonna install the new bearing sleeve here. I'm gonna clean it out. This actually was the thing I ended up waiting the longest for, but we got it. So for this, flip the bell housing over, clean it again, and this is just gonna hammer right in here. It mostly drops in, and then the last bit, we're gonna use a block again and a dead blow and just hammer it in. Okay, I can't imagine it's supposed to go in any further than that. That's pretty deep in there. Now it's time to install the adapter plate. So I'm first gonna clean it. Make sure it's really clean. I already pre-cleaned it, so it's pretty clean already, but I make sure, I got sawdust in my shop, so I make sure I don't have sawdust in there. And then we got to take this faceplate off again. Just slides right out. I'm going to remove the stock gasket here. Don't need that. And then I'm just going to very carefully wipe down the faces here. Make sure everything's clean. You can see where the bottom 4 bolts were sealed up. That's something we got to make sure we do. Put the Loctite on there. So we need to get into our bolts here. Make sure we line up the holes for the gasket. It's pretty obvious. So just go ahead and thread the rest of these in. Okay, so I was wrong. These are the 4 bolts that actually hold your bell housing to the adapter. So these are the 4 we're going to put in the bottom 4 here. Open up our Loctite. The reason we're doing this is the bottom 4 bolts are submerged in the transmission fluid, so you want to make sure they don't leak. This is going to help seal it up. My hands are freezing. It's starting to get cold here. These bottom 4 are a little tougher going in because there's a little sealant already in the threads from the previous bolts. I'm going to use this impact with a 6mm Allen to thread these in. I'm not going to torque it up super tight. I'm just using this to speed it up. I don't have the torque specs for this, so I'm just going to hand tighten kind of evenly, just working around slowly. The next move for me is going to be, I have to get this motor off the stand so I can install the rear main seal, the flywheel, pressure plate, clutch. I want to install it, and I also want to install the bell housing and the shift fork so you can see how the spacing's looking for that. And then once I get that dialed in, I'm going to remove the bell housing, bolt it to the transmission, and then honestly, we might be putting the motor in the car today. So we'll see how that goes. I got everything ready here. It's been thoroughly gone through. I'm going to do one more check, make sure everything's tight. I got to put the distributor back on, but I'm going to do that in the car. I like to do it without the distributor on because it gives me a little bit more room to move around against the firewall. So I'm going to get this in the air. I just went to look at this. This is the pilot bearing, and I was thinking, this doesn't look like it's going to fit. So one thing is, my motor, this crankshaft came from an automatic transmission, and there's no spot for the pilot bearing here, but I just read online I believe this piece can be removed. So I'm just gonna kind of tap it and try to get it out of there, because we need that for the pilot bearing to be able to go in. And there it is. Probably never use this again. That was way more work than I thought. But this piece goes here. This is to adapt the crankshaft to the automatic transmission for the torque converter. That was a pain in the ass. The next move is going to be to install the pilot bearing. This is supplied by D-Works. Came with my adapter. One thing is, if you have this piece from your automatic transmission, it's the same size as the bearing, so you can definitely use this to pound it in. That would work really well. But you want something that's gonna preferably fit to the outside ring of the bearing. I found a not sure how far. Looks like there's a little lip in there. Maybe we can just tap it to there. And so it bottoms out. There's a little bit of a lip in there. We just want to make sure it's flat. Next step is to get the motor to top dead center. Right now I don't have my timing belt on because I'm going to get this thing all put together, and then I'm going to prime the oil pump. But we at least want to get the crankshaft to top dead center, so we're just going to take a 24mm socket and turn the crank clockwise until your timing mark on the pulley lines up with 0 on your timing cover. So I got it right there. If you need more instruction on this, there's definitely a lot of videos out there about getting your timing right. My car is actually running LH 2.2, but what I want to do is I want to eventually run this with a standalone, or LH 2.4, but probably a standalone. So if you have a LH 2.4 car, or you're doing a standalone and you want to use this crankshaft position sensor, this flywheel has machined in it. You can see it has this pattern all the way around, but right here you have a flat spot. So we want this flat spot to face 12 o'clock when we install this. There's a nice little lip on there, so that sits right on. And then I've already put some blue Loctite on my flywheel bolts. I'm going to loosely thread these in to start. And again, this is my first time doing this or any manual transmission swap, so it's all new to me. But honestly, so far it's really straightforward, even really knowing kind of nothing. So far it's coming together just fine. These bolts are new from YOSHIFAB. They're 12.9 grade hardware. I'm just going to snug them up with this. These impacts save so much time. For torquing the flywheel, we're going to start just tightening it. And one thing is, you gotta hold the starter gear here so it doesn't turn on you. So I just slid a bolt in here. Let's see, how do I do this? just slid a bolt in here, and you can just hold a screwdriver or a pry bar in one of the teeth here, and that's going to keep it from turning. So we're just going to start tightening these. We're going to do kind of a across from each other pattern. It's kind of hard to do on this engine stand with no help. It'd be really nice to have somebody stabilize the engine, but just do what we can. So I'm just working across from each other, trying to really evenly distribute the torque. Now this cheap ass Harbor Freight torque wrench only goes to 80 foot-pounds. What I saw online was we want 85 foot-pounds. It's gonna be hard to do. Yeah, so my torque wrench only goes to 80 foot-pounds, and I'm having a hard time even getting it to do 80. So I think just as tight as I can get them with this breaker bar. I mean, that's as tight as I can get them. Again, this would probably be a lot easier with help from somebody. I do have friends, but not so much car friends. Maybe this could be done on the engine stand. Not sure. We're not putting it back on there, it's going in the car. Okay, those are as tight as I can get them. Of course, we lost our top dead center here because it was turning. But I got those as tight as I could. These are 17 millimeter sockets. I've got Loctite on there, so they should be safe. I think it should be solid. Next move is the clutch and pressure plate. I've got the Allen bolts here for the pressure plate from YOSHIFAB. I'm assuming they're also 12.9 grade. The flywheel says flywheel side on it, so that's sick. So I'm just going to place this here, and then these should pop right on these holes. So there's two holes. One's for the bolt, one is for these alignment pins. And it should press right on, more or less. We got our clutch alignment tool here. I've never used one before, but it seems pretty aligned. So here we're just going to put our Allen bolts in. Now that I've got them all hand threaded, I'm going to use this 6 millimeter Allen to snug them up. This has a rounded head though, so I'm not going to do the final torque with it. I'm just going to snug them up. I'm going to start just tightening them, see how tight I can get it. Same thing, sort of trying to work across from each other. Now I'm kind of torquing them more or less as tight as I can get them. It's an Allen head, so that in itself is kind of prohibitive of how tight I can get it. Don't want to break it or strip it. Again, I put blue Loctite on these, so should be pretty safe. All right, I'm just gonna go back and check again. Tight. So the next step for me is going to be, I want to install the bell housing, and I want to check to make sure my clearances are right. So that's the next move here. Bell housing stuff. So I need to install the shift fork, the throwout bearing, and before I do that, I want to show you guys something. So this is a stock shift fork that came in my car. You can see there's a hole here where the hydraulic piece pushes against. This is the original style, earlier style. I got a new Volvo one, and you can see this one has solid. It's solid here. And apparently these were used in the M90s, later M90 transmissions, but apparently they work perfectly in this car as well. And the stock one had some kind of clip that held the throwout bearing on, but my car didn't have it, and I don't know how it went together. So that's another reason I got this. It's supposed to be stronger. I just figured might as well update it. You can see the part number. That's the part number for the shift fork. And then it has this little plastic piece. You can see the part number there. This piece pops in here somehow. I'll have to figure it out. Yeah, so I'm gonna put a little grease on this. I just have whatever grease is laying around here, some white lithium grease. So on this one, this pops in right here. And there's a little slot. And just clicks in like that. So I also have, I'm just gonna put a little bit of grease on this. I don't know that there's supposed to be any, but it seems to me like there should be a little bit. I think you don't want too much because you don't want it to get on your clutch, is the idea. We have our throwout bearing. This updated throwout bearing from Josh has 2 different settings, so I don't know which one to try it on, honestly. I'm just gonna pick one, put it together, and see how my spacing is, and adjust from there. So this is gonna go right on here, and our shift fork is gonna come right here. Maybe they gotta go on together. Just pop that in. That ball's clicked on there, if you can see. So that was easy. Yeah, we're just gonna bolt this up temporarily and check out our spacing. This is the measurement I'm looking for here. And I've only got about like 1.5 inches, whereas previously I had like 2 1/4 here. So I'm gonna take it apart. I'm gonna put the throwout bearing to another adjustment and see how much different that is. One discovery I'm making is, so like if this throwout bearing sitting flat with the face of this sleeve, it's like completely uptight here, right? And if I use the older style arm, get this out of here. So I already had it on the setting, the adjustment that would give me the most play, but if you look here, if this is flush, I actually have like a good 1/4 inch more, 1/4 to 1/2 inch more space there in this arm. So I mean, this is me just thinking. I believe that's because of the plastic shim that's in the new style shift fork. This one has, like, you know, 1/8 inch more material under it. Moving on, I'm going to attach the bell housing to the transmission here. One thing we have to make sure and do is there's a seal that goes here. It's in this Timken box. And it goes just like this. I'm going to put a little bit of motor oil on there. Just lube it up. Should press right in there. Okay. Clean this surface a bit. As far as I know, it should be in line with the shifter. Well, this is kind of confusing the hell out of me. I think I need to rotate this to the other position, because by the time the motor is sitting in the car, the transmission's actually going to be turned more this way, and we want the transmission to be upright. So I hope I'm right, and if I'm wrong, everyone can learn from my mistake. Or maybe I'm just stupid, I don't know. But we're going to turn it and try that out. Snug these back up. Yeah, hopefully that works. Hopefully that makes sense. I had it in the more where this slot is in line with the transmission, which would kind of make sense, right? Like, it seems like it would be straight, but the motor, looking at the motor mounts, you know, it actually sits kind of little sideways in the car. So, God, I hope I got it right. We'll find out. The next move here is going to be to clean and re-grease this pivot ball. Since I had so much off and on, I'm trying to figure that out. So I'm just gonna throw a little grease on there. And I'm gonna put just a tiny bit of grease on here. I don't think you're really supposed to put much, but just gonna put a real light coat. Gonna reinstall the pivot fork, the clutch fork, and the release bearing, throwout bearing. I'm using it on the thinnest setting here. If you use it this way, it spaces it out even more. So I want that clearance. And actually, I'm gonna put on the boot here at the same time. Looks like maybe it goes like this. Pivot ball just sort of snaps right on there. And just install this dust cover. Should be pretty easy. It wasn't that easy, but it wasn't that hard either. We're gonna remove this cross member. It's a 14 millimeter. Okay. Maybe your transmission doesn't have a mount on it already. That'd be nice, because that shit was really tight. So I'm just going to take these off. It's two 14 millimeter bolts. Once you break them loose, it's very easy, but they were really tight. Okay, so I'm taking out this bolt. in the middle. I don't think we're going to use that one. I think we use these two on the sides, so may need one more bolt for this actually. But for this, we're going to use these two, bolt it right back where it went. Okay, the mount is there. I'm gonna fill the transmission with fluid. I got 4 quarts of this genuine Nissan 75W85. This is the fluid that they recommend putting from the factory. Some people use the red line fluid apparently. I figure for me the stock works. So this is a 10mm fill plug. I already loosened it, so. And I'm hoping this fits in there. So you can probably just use the funnel directly, but I wanted to use a hose. So I'm gonna do it like this. Evidently it'll take just over 3 quarts, like 3 1/3, I think. We're already spilling, that's not good. Next up is installing the center support bearing on the drive shaft. I don't know how hard this is going to be. We'll find out. I'm going to put a little bit of grease. This is lithium grease. Should make it easier to slide on. The drive shaft came with the bearing installed already. I think it fits pretty tightly on there. Let's see how easy this goes on. So I might put this in the vise and then tap it the rest of the way on. A few other things to speak of. We want to make sure we unplug this vent. We plugged it earlier so that we didn't get any metal in there. As well as on mine, the yoke here is rubbing this. This piece, I just grabbed onto it with some vice grips and I pulled it out. So it's comes out really easy. Didn't really even damage it. Could be used later. We won't use it though. They're pretty much ready to attach it to the transmission. I'm going to remove this actual shift rod. We don't need it on there until it's in the car. Move the clutch alignment tool. I really kind of struggled with this part. This probably went on for a good 15 or 20 minutes, I imagine. Okay, I finally got the transmission connected up to the motor. It was really a struggle. I think it would have been a lot easier with some help, but by myself it was pretty hard. ultimately I never got it to just slide in super easy, but little by little I got a few bell housing bolts in and kind of slowly pulled it together. So I got a few more bolts on the bottom to get. I've got most of them in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I think it's pretty safe to lift at this point. This back seal on the tail shaft, it actually leaks fluid. Since I filled it up without the drive shaft in there, it's leaking. So I'm gonna put a little paper towel in there to hopefully keep that from coming out more. When you turn it up on its end, it wants to come out, of course. I don't really know how much good that's gonna do, but I'm gonna try it out. So I'm gonna get this thing in the air, a few little checks in the engine bay, see what's missing, and try to get it in the car. Got those other bell housing bolts on, and what I'm gonna do next, I think, is a little probably unconventional, but that's how I'm gonna do it. So this drive shaft, this part goes in the tail housing, and this part connects to the drive shaft under the car. It's a 2-piece drive shaft. So I didn't take the drive shaft loose from the differential. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna slide this part on the drive shaft under the car, and then somehow, doing this by myself, I'm gonna lower the motor into the car, and I'm gonna try to align this with the tail shaft of the transmission to where it just slides right in. It might not work. If it does, I'll drop the differential, the drive shaft where it meets the differential, but those bolts are really tight, and if I can avoid having to take them loose, I'm going to. So I'm gonna crawl under the car now, slide that in, and then I'm gonna start trying to get the motor in the car. I'm sitting here at the end of the day. As you can see, I did get the motor into the car, and it wasn't super easy, but I was able to do it myself. The trickiest things were, well, it was tricky to actually get the motor in and line the drive shaft up at the same time. That was a little tricky. But otherwise, honestly, not too bad. I did it by myself. I just adjusted a little bit as I went, very carefully. Yeah, I mean, the hardest part was definitely the slave cylinder for the clutch. I had some back and forth. I wasn't sure about exactly how I wanted to space the pivot ball. There's the spacer that comes with the YOSHIFAB kit, but I felt like that was too big. Once I put everything together, I showed that. So I put a different spacer in there. I felt like that was going to be okay. And then on some advice that I received, I put the one back in from YOSHIFAB and just thought, okay, he makes this for it, I'm just going to do it. But I think the thing is, I use the newer style clutch fork, and it's a new clutch, it's an aftermarket clutch. So ultimately what happened was, when I went to install the clutch slave cylinder, you know, you have to compress the piston, you have to push it in, and then you got to get the little C-clip on there. And I was wearing myself out pushing that in, trying to close the gap, but I could not get it. I was trying everything. My arm was cramping up. I hadn't drank any water hardly today. I've just been in here working, so that was really hard. I couldn't get it. And instead of pulling the whole transmission and respacing the pivot ball, what I decided to do was I actually shaved off the tip of the little piston that pushes in under the car. I got my angle grinder under there, I held it with some needle nose, and I just shaved off a little bit at a time. I used a dual action sander and I kind of rounded it over, and until I could actually push that all the way closed. I tried bleeding a little fluid out to see if that would help, but it didn't seem to help. I think the piston can only compress so much, so it was maxed out. So ultimately, that was the easiest thing to do, was to just shave a little bit off of there. It was a little bit risky. I thought I might destroy the slave cylinder, but it was okay. I did get it down to the metal, but it feels okay. We're gonna go inside the car in a second. I'll show you how far I got today. And yeah, unfortunately I wasn't able to record everything under the car. It's pretty close quarters, pretty dark, and pretty difficult what was going on. So I'll just show you the inside of the car. And then tomorrow I'll finish up. I think tomorrow I'll be able to get everything reconnected. Maybe start it tomorrow, so we'll see how it goes. So in the car, you can see, got this all set up. Only problem I'm seeing so far is, as you can see down here, the shifter is actually, I think it's resting, if not resting against the metal of the car right here, it's very close. I'm a little worried it's probably gonna make like a rattling noise or something. We'll have to wait and see. If anything, I can sort of maybe bend this back. Hopefully I don't have to take the transmission totally down to do that, but as far as I can tell, I've got very similar to the stock clutch feel. There's a little bit of like, I don't know how to describe it, like a little rib, like a vibrating ribbed kind of feeling in the travel, but same travel as far as I can tell. And the shifter is sweet, man. I've got it back pretty far, not the farthest setting, second to farthest, but I mean, it's really nice. Basically how this works, when you take this apart, you take this clip off. It's a C-clip, comes off, and this whole cylinder slides out. What you have right there is a little sort of piston. This thing pushes on the clutch arm. This is your clutch arm right here. I would say you don't want any less than maybe 1 5/8 minimum for this gap. When I did mine, what I had to do was, I had the motor all assembled and everything, and I could not get this fully seated. I was ending up with about 1/8 inch of a gap right here. I could not get it fully seated and get this ring in, and it was wearing me out. And what I had to do, instead of pulling the whole transmission and readjusting that pivot ball, is I just had the cylinder out, and this little piston under here, I used a cutting wheel and I shaved off about 1/8 of an inch off the tip, and then I rounded it out. So that was my easy way to adjust it. I took the minimum amount off to where I could get this in, because what you do probably want is this piston to be pretty compressed, so that way when you press the clutch, you can get the maximum amount of travel out of this right here. So that was really important for me, and now it seems to work great. So yeah, again, a minimum of, not the C-clip, but in front of the C-clip, from the bell housing to the edge of that fork, I'm measuring 1.5 inches, but that was after I shaved off 1/8 inch off my piston. So I think probably 1 5/8 minimum, or you're gonna really have a hard time getting that cylinder in. Here you can see where the shifter ended up in the tunnel. It's off center right now and it's touching the metal there, so I'm gonna want to do something about that eventually, but let's take it for a test ride. Ooh, that sure is nasty sounding. I don't like that one bit. You can see where the shifter is making contact with the body. So that's a problem. We need to cut that out, because I'm getting a lot of vibration right now. It doesn't feel very good. So what I've done is cut a little bit of this material away, and then I wrapped the corners of the shifter with this sound deadening material. I've also, as much as I could, stuck sound deadening up in this tunnel without taking the transmission out. So now I'm going to put a layer of sound deadening, 2 layers over this hole, and then I'll put the shifter boot over that, and should have the sound sealed up quite a bit better. Here's a shot of the transmission tunnel. I know this isn't the normal or proper usage of this sound deadening, but I was pretty desperate right about then to quiet it down. So that was a little bit of an improvement, but there's still quite a bit of noise I shall hear here in a minute. Mostly the noise is on like the deceleration, or when you're just not on the gas or engine braking, just cruising. So a discovery I made is, you see this rib? It's making direct contact with the cross member here and here. I mean, that tells me that's going to be transferring vibration directly into the cabin, because there's no rubber between there. In this shot you can see I've switched to an Energy suspension polyurethane mount. It's the softest one they make, and you can see where I clearanced the ribs on the transmission so I wasn't making contact with the cross member. Alright, so we're going to go over this one more time. So what I've done here is I removed a decent amount, really just a little bit, of the trans tunnel here to make sure that I'm not contacting anywhere here. You can see a bunch of goop here. That's from the sound deadening I already put on and took off. But I've wrapped some sound deadening. This is stuff from this brand on Amazon called Silas. It's very cheap, and I think it'll work. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to put 2 layers of the same sound deadening over the hole. We're going to wrap just around the shifter here. Hopefully set it right flush with this area. So it should look something like that. Just sealing this big hole off. Before I did that, I had so much sound coming through. The transmission's pretty noisy, so I want to definitely seal that hole off, because it's a big hole there. So next I'm going to install this piece I got from Amazon. Nothing fancy, it's just it's got a 16 millimeter inside. So what you can do is you can put this here, and then we're going to put the shifter on top of that, but first I got to put on the boot. Alright, so got that. It's just an inline adapter. The offset one, the CD009 provides, you don't really need it, or I didn't need it. It lined up very well, very centered, and I wanted some extra height on the shifter, so I used this. CD009 sells something for about $40. It does the same thing, but I got this for $10 on Amazon, and I'll put the link in the description. So next I'm going to put the shifter here and just tighten the set screw, and this is the top of the original shift boot, and I'm just using that to kind of cover everything I got going on here. Here you can see the drive shaft installed in the car. Sliding it back and forth, you can see there's about 4 inches of play. Once the carrier bushing is tightened down, it does not really move back and forth. To me this seems a little short, but Josh insisted that it was normal and it should be fine, so we'll see long term if it gives me any trouble or not. Alright, so that about does it. All in all, not too bad of a process. If I had all the parts together at once, I probably could have done this in a day or two. I didn't have them already, so it did take me a bit longer, but it wasn't too bad. I've been driving the car now for about 1,000 miles, and I really like the way it's feeling. The shifting is super crisp. It feels plenty strong. The gear ratio is okay. I'm running a 373 gear in the back, the stock one. So it does sit a little high in the RPM range on the highway. I would say at like 70 miles an hour, I'm somewhere around 3,000 RPMs. Ideally, I'd like to switch to like a 331 gear in the future, like a locker differential, and I do think that will drop the RPMs considerably on the highway, as well as make first gear a little bit more usable for me. One thing I don't like about this is it is making a lot of sound still. Like, I've done a lot of work to try to remedy it, and apparently that's just the way these cars are, or these transmissions are. I'm hearing that with the lightened flywheel, the CD009s are almost always noisy, and that's because from the factory, Nissan would use like a dual mass flywheel that would dampen the vibrations and the noise. So when we switch to like more of a race type of flywheel like I'm using on this, it's pretty notorious for being noisy. It mostly makes noise under deceleration, like engine braking, and when you're kind of, you know, neither decelerating or accelerating. If you're kind of in the in-between point, it does make a bit of noise. When you're accelerating, it's not making any noise at all. And then the other thing is when you're sitting at a stop and the car's in neutral and you take your foot off the clutch, you can hear something going on in there. And you know, I thought my transmission might have been messed up at first, but apparently this is really normal. As soon as you push the clutch in, it goes away. So it's not the worst, but I think for a daily driver, it could be, depending on, you know, your preferences, it could be a little noisy. For a track car, something like that, drag racing car, drift car, I think you wouldn't have any problem because that wouldn't be any kind of an issue. So to be fair, there are still a few things I can sort out. I need to adjust the pinion angle on my rear end. I do have adjustable torque rods, so I can adjust that. And also, when you have a lowered 7 Series Volvo, you really need to space out the carrier bushing cross member. So like, you can put some washers under there. There's videos. I think Drifts and Lifts has a video that shows how to do that. It's really simple. So I still need to get that spacing really dialed in, the pinion angle dialed in, and then, although most people have said you will not need to bash the tunnel on the 7 Series or 9 Series, mine is not touching per se, but it's very close. So I have a suspicion that, you know, under deceleration or heavy acceleration, you know, it's kind of torquing a bit and probably making contact with the tunnel. So I think the best thing to do is going to be take the transmission down, kind of bash the tunnel a bit in those spots where I need a little more clearance, or I might even actually be able to use like a 1x4 or a 2x4 and kind of get under there and make a little more room. You know, the other thing is the Serial 9 shifter is all like solid mounted basically. There's no rubber bushings or anything. So that in itself, I think is transferring more vibration, and I guess it's worth it though, because it does shift really crisp. I've never drove a car that had such a nice shifter for it. This is the first video I've made for this new channel. I'm starting a company called Namarupa. It's going to be products for Volvos, tattooing, spiritual paraphernalia, and just clothes and shirts and stuff like that. So I'm going to launch this company soon, and this is the first video I've made on YouTube. I want to start doing more instructional videos for Volvos particularly. If you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe. In the future, I'm planning on doing a B&E coilover, race coilover installation on this car. I got those parts on order, so I'm going to do that as well as rebuild the entire front suspension. So I'm going to make a video documenting that process, as well as the next step after that for me is going to be, I'm going to go with max ECU street, and I'm going to put that in the car. I've never done anything like that, the standalone ECU system, and I've seen a few videos where people have explained this, but not so thorough for this specific car. So if you want to see that, stay tuned. I'm going to make those videos probably in the next 6 months to a year. And if you have any questions, concerns, corrections, anything like that, please leave a comment and let me know so we can correct the information and make sure everyone's getting correct information, because that's the last thing I want to do is steer people in the wrong direction. My hope is that this video has been helpful to you. I've been, reading on Turbobricks and these different forums and on YouTube, taking in information about these cars for many, many years. And I'm feeling really happy to just give back and try to provide the community with something worth something, make a contribution. So if there's anything wrong with the video, please tell me, and I appreciate you looking. Hare Krishna.